Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel for finally some new gameplay of a new archetype. It's just so many new Yu-Gi-Oh cards have came out with in the past few days, but we got some new archetype gameplay. This is the Despia, so if you're excited about a new archetype, drop a like on this video because you're about to see something really cool. So the Dragon Link player is going to take about half an hour for his play, but don't worry, we're going to be able to deal with it with the new Despias. Now, when you combo it with the Reptile Abyss archetype, you're going to be able to potentially draw a massive amount of cards. You can draw up to 7. If your opponent like completely pops off, you can go +7 against them, and you're going to see a massive plus really soon here in the gameplay. But in addition to that, you will be able to definitely build up, I would say, a pretty respectable board with the Despia archetype. Now, just as a heads up right now, you kind of need to play them with something. There's not just like enough cards to just run a pure Despia deck in its own archetype. I think they're better splashed into, you know, you can run the Fallen of Albaz, like that variant of an archetype. You can also throw them in a lot of different things. But nonetheless, again, the Dragon Link player is going to take a while for his play to finally end. But you'll see what you can do up against maybe an established board if you happen to have the right cards. So one of those right cards is going to be Dark Ruler No More, or anything that would stop effects. So he's going to go ahead and prevent the Null from getting the effect. But Snake's Reign is a pretty good card. And then on top of that, we're going to be able to go summon the Null Drag, bring out the Cursed Dawn, grant our opponent another card, which is actually going to help us even draw more cards, which you guys will see here very soon. So now he's going to get proc the effect of the Heroic Seal, get himself a Dragon Maid, and add the Cleanup, or Tidying in the TCG as it's called. And now we are going to see the player go ahead and summon the Albert, which lets him add another card. That card usually is going to be the Theater, so it's the Despia Theater, which lets you fusion summon during your main phase. You can just fusion summon monsters. Going for a level 8 or higher from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. There's also huge plays that you can do with the deck with Super Poly. So one of the things that you can make if your opponent happens to have a large board and maybe you've already negated the important card's effects, right? You go ahead and make the Quaratus over here. This card has the awesome ability to make everything have 0. Why is that good in Reptiles? Well, if you guys remember, the Abyss have a really cool Link monster. Now, he's going to go try to negate that effect, but that's not going to be happening because his effect's already negated. So you can go for Echidna, and look at this. Look at the pluses. You get to not only make something have 0 attack, but you get to go ahead and draw. It's so ridiculous. Draw up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with 0 attack. So he just went +5 off of this play over here. Like I said, you can go up to +7 if your opponent happens to have a Link monster that also still grants you like a Link zone. So that would be like the max that you can get. But I mean, if you go +5, right, you're definitely going to be ahead of the game. Like, it's going to be insane. And on top of that, you still have access to more cards. That's not it with the Despia. It's not just make everything have 0 attack, but that's kind of like the card that I would say is a little bit easier to summon for the archetype. Plus, in addition to Super Poly, you can actually go for a lot more things, which you guys will see very soon over here. But once again, bringing back the Fusion monster to go ahead and have, that's a quick effect, by the way, during the main phase, so you can do it during your opponent's turn as well to make everything have 0. So now, once again, let's go ahead and make everything have 0. Unfortunately, at that point, the guy has to basically pass turn, as he doesn't really have anything. But he ends up making Borrelsword Dragon, because Dragon Link, it's a very resilient deck. They like to come back again and again, and you'll see once again, he is able to, I would say, establish board control after basically losing out to a huge board that he did make and still bring out another Heroic Seal. But a lot of times, again, they'll just end up passing because, you know, if your monster has 0 attack, you're not going to crash into something unless you're playing Gustos. But anyways, now we're going to see, once again, the player take control that is playing the Abyss. So Ogdo Abyss able to go ahead and wipe everything that, except for monsters that were supposed to from the graveyard, which is basically whatever you give your opponent. And at this point, he's going to go ahead and use the Cleanup, go ahead and bounce back some cards. But it doesn't really matter at this point, as he basically exhausted his entire archetype. That happens sometimes with certain decks, is like they can only pop off so many times, and then like you need the extra deck, you know. So now we're going to see another boss monster from the Despian archetype, the other fusion monster, which requires a Despia monster plus a light and a dark monster. But this card, sorry, it kind of went really fast, but it has a main phase quick effect that targets a fusion, synchro, Xyz, or Link monster in an opponent's graveyard. We either banish monster or special summon it to our field. In this case, we actually went and took the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which is a pretty good card that has the ability to negate some stuff, right? But yeah, so they have like a lot of ace cards in the extra deck in terms of like for powerfulness, but there's also a pretty good effect on some of the other monsters. One of them just like a search for another Despia card, but this one is pretty good because the Dramaturga of Despia, if a fusion, synchro, and or link monster special summon, you get a target effect monster in the field and negate its effect. So I don't know if I would consider it like an anti-meta deck, but it definitely has some like extra deck kind of hate, especially because you're able to super poly in the deck and, you know, get rid of your opponent's stuff. But that was one duel over there showing you guys how it can play against like something that's you know, established. But there's a few more other plays that I want to show off. This is one with Dark Magician over here. I know Dark Magician is not the most meta of archetypes, but at the end of the day, if you have super poly, it doesn't matter what your opponent has. They cannot respond to it. It's game over, right? And you'll see the Dark Magician player at least bring out, I promise you he'll bring out some stuff, okay? Even though, like I said, Dark Magician is not what I would consider very meta. But Albert over here is just really good just to add a Stigmatica spell / trap from your deck to your hand, and this would Stigmatica Despia, pretty good stuff indeed, to go ahead and search out whatever you really need to go for the right time. A lot of times it will be for going for some fusion plays later down the line. Basically setting up is what you will be doing in the very beginning of the deck, depending on what you have. Like, you can play the deck slower. I got two different builds, one courtesy of Magus, one courtesy of Tsubasa over here. They've been basically playing the deck two different ways, like completely different. As if you want to play more controlled variant, like this guy activated Crackdown because he just didn't want to take any more damage. He kind of had what I would consider like a mediocre-ish hand. But again, even if he was able to make something with double super poly, it's not going to be going through anytime soon. So now we're going to see the Quiritus once again, and this card is really good. That's the quick effect to make everything have 0. And on top of that, again, you can super poly and just beat out your opponent. So he's going to go for Apprentice Illusion, and then we got the secrets. He's going to go for the Fusion Summon, making the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Punishment is activated, and he's going to go also try to make it have 0, but the Dark Dragoon is going to also negate that effect over there, but he's able to actually utilize his effect of Dragoon to make him get rid of another card, because remember, you have to actually have that ability to discard that one card to negate the activation. So he got another card out of him, and then he's going to go ahead and hit him up with a Super Poly and make another Quiritus over here. So even if he has another follow-up play, right, to make Dark Magician, because that's common in a Dark Magician deck, he would just make it have 0, and then the following turn you can go make something else. So he's going to summon Dark Magician. Not that it really matters too much. He's going to go and banish the card, but he's going to go ahead and also be able to special summon another card, because they do have this awesome ability. I need to go over this card effect also really quick. So in addition, if a face-up fusion monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, which I didn't get to really talk about and show off before, you target an effect monster your opponent controls, and then special summon this card, and then also negate that monster's effect until the end of the turn. So, like, if you get rid of their stuff, they're still going to be bringing something back, potentially, and on top of that, negating your effects. So, I think the archetype is pretty good. Now, obviously, Dark Magician, no effect monster, and not going to be the greatest in that particular scenario, but once again, he's going to go ahead and make a Dark Magician Dragonite, and with Eternal Soul, this can actually get pretty nasty. He's going to go ahead and be able to get over the board, but there's going to be a really cool card that comes out. Because anything that can play Super Poly can be very powerful. But he's got a Monster Reborn, and he's going to go ahead and bring back the Dragoon, and he's going to actually negate his own card. It's actually a pretty cool play, because his opponent only had 900 life points. If he negated his own effect, he'd be able to boost himself up and then just run over. Although if this card was an actual like macro that mattered, might have been a bad idea. But remember, Dragoon does have the awesome ability to make it so it can't be destroyed by card effects. It would only really like lose to, you can't even Magic Cylinder it. But like if this card was something and he needed to negate, might have been a bad idea, but he's like, let's go for game. Pretty cool play over there by Tsubasa. But I'm gonna go and show you guys a deck profile of both different variants, so you guys can go ahead and see kind of how the deck can play. So anyways, the first one over here is going to be this one is the one where I would consider this more of a control variant. And obviously any of the cards that say OCG are probably not out, going to be out for a while in the TCG, but nonetheless, those are like the newer cards. So this is just one variant of the deck. So there's 2 copies of the Dramaturga over here, and then this is a new card. It doesn't belong to the archetype. It's not like a draw power card, or it has like a lot of different effects. We didn't really get to talk about it in the gameplay, but nonetheless, it was here. I'll try to go over the more important ones. So then there's the Blackclad Dragon of Albion. Then we have 3 copies of Albus Nullius Phineas, 3 copies of the Albert. This is the one where it lets you add 1, and then also special summon and negate when another fusion fusion goes away, basically. And then we have the Despia of Tragedy, and if it's sent to the graveyard, banished, or by a card effect, you get to add a Despia monster from your deck to hand. So you have a lot of search. You have search whatever spell trap, you have search whatever monster that you want, and then this is not particular to them, but 3 tactical talents can be good as well. And then Stigmatica of White, that just lets you fusion. I actually really just like the field spell because it's like so free. Then Terraforming, Foolish, then Reborn. We got 3 copies of the Bond. This lets you just special summon one that is banished or in your hand or in your graveyard. So just like go for anything. Super Poly, obviously this is like kind of like the one way that you can win in the deck for sure to play more control play style. We have Curtain Rise, you discard a card and special summon in defense position a Despia from your deck, which is really good. Although you can't go for anything except for fusion monsters, but that doesn't really hurt your deck at all over here. Then we have 3 copies of the Despia Stigmatica Theater. So this lets you just go right for your fusion. Then if a face up a non-fusion fairy monster you control destroy a battle or leaves the field, you target a 1 level 8 or lower higher fusion monster graveyard and special summon it. That's an insane effect. That's why I always just say, like, just if you're trying to go for a fusion for the archetype, like Poly is obviously way outdated, but I just like this card because it's just a field spell and it has the ability to reoccur, right? And then we have, oh, he's just playing a Gravedigger Trapple because you don't want to get some other stuff potentially that your opponent's activating their hand that gets running your effects, so that's good for that. And then we have the Omnious Cry, because if you're playing control build, you can play a little bit slower. You know, Called by the Grave is obviously, I would say, much better in a lot of different circumstances, but you can also consider this if, again, you want to play a more controlled play style. Then we have the Omnious Cry, then 3 copies of the Punishment, and then 1 copy of the Stigmatica, Judgment of Stigmatica. Then for the extra deck, this card is the one that lets you target a extra deck monster and then bring it back, or you can banish it. And then the Quartus you guys saw again and again, which is the quick effect, make everything 0, draw 5, awesome, completely balanced Kappa. Then we have the Steel Express Dragon, the Dragon Brigand. Most of the stuff just doesn't come out, like the Ashen Dragon, also the Titan Clad. Never really seen super new plays, like in all the gameplays that I actually had over here. Just want to give you guys some of like the highlights here. Then we have the Stigmatica Dragon. This one, I don't know, like you can go for this, then go for something else, but most of the time you just go for the thing and you'll be a-okay. But for the other one, the reptile variant that you guys saw in the first gameplay, obviously this one's going to be completely different. So we have Ogdo Abyss, usually only play one of that anyways, then 3 copies of the Dragon Maturga, then 3 copies of the Queen of the Abyss, then we got 1 copy of Aleth, then 1 copy of Kirstone, 2 copies of Phologi, 3 copies of Albert. This is like a bread and butter in the deck. And then we have 2 copies of Zoa, 3 copies of Nihil, 3 copies of Null, 2 copies of the Allure of Darkness, 3 copies of Super Foolish Burial, and then obviously, yeah, this card is so insane, dude. Just send Fuller. Well, basically we're gonna be sending 5 because usually you discard one. Then we have the Snake Lily, which lets you send another, and on top of that, it's like a Reborn too. And then 3 copies of Dark Ruler, and then 1 copy of Terraforming, Depths of Abyss, and then 2 copies of the Stigmatica, which is really, really good for the archetype. Obviously, you have other cards searched out. I even think you can play Terraforming in the deck. You know, perfectly fine. Well, not Terraforming. The field spell card, or the card that lets you activate the field spell. Is it like I forgot the name of it off the top of my head. I think that like this card is so good for the archetype. I would honestly consider playing it. The one where it lets you activate, or even the one where it's like if an opponent special summons, you get to activate a field spell from your deck. But obviously you still have to potentially wait. But if that monster leaves the field and you basically special like activate it from your deck, you can actually surprise your opponent too. So that could be another thing to take into consideration. Then Offerings to the Snake Deity, it just lets you, it's basically a curse attack but for snakes, or reptiles. But anyways, then we have like these are the 2 important cards. King of the Feral Imps is obviously really good. You could still run an extra deck. You can even make Z-Lore over here. That is the new alien. You see, but the only real important things is the Reptilian Echidna and then the combo with Aquarius. Make everything have 0. Draw for every monster that they have, and you can even give your opponent a +1 monster because of the archetype of the Abyss. You'll give them 1, and these are just other cards that were here. But really cool stuff indeed. Big shouts to Magus, Lucius, as well as Subasa for hooking me up with the Zach profiles as well as the gameplay for you guys. But let me know guys' thoughts down below on the Despia archetype. You guys think they're going to be good? Do you think it's like a mid-tier deck? Do you think it's a bad deck? I'm really curious to know what you guys think. I think that it has some potential. Again, like the archetype is like relatively in its early infancy, but like they're not like bad, you know, like this is a really good effect. And on top of that, again, like I mentioned before, Super Poly, being able to splash it into the deck, it's just so good. Especially with this, it requires a light and a dark. Imagine taking like double monsters, and then let's say you summon this card and your opponent activates like Ash Blossom, you activate that Super Poly, bam, you get your effect, and on top of that, you get to maybe, you know, put this into the grave, and then, you know, obviously it dodges the effect, and then your opponent can't respond, and then they lose out on 2 monsters. It's just really good, and then you get to potentially bring something back that you use for the material. Like, it's nasty. I think it has potential for sure. I think it's like right there from becoming like potentially meta levels of good. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours down below. But if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. And if you're new here and do want to see more new Yu-Gi-Oh stuff in the future, hit subscribe, turn that bell, and you'll definitely see more very soon. But take care. I'll catch you guys in the next vid. Peace.